All right, Alyssa, we're going to wrap up the podcast today with a question. And I think it's a question that our boss heroes can play with for a little while and should revisit from time to time when they look at their workplaces and their work environments. And that question is this: are you settling for what you have, or are you working toward what could be? I've been thinking a lot lately about how hard it is at times for bosses to level up. Because I think that for many leaders, the nature of the work prevents them from even giving it consideration. I've shared this story with folks before, that when I wrote my first book and was interviewing leaders all over the country, I kept hearing the same turn of phrase. I would say, as a boss, what's your job? And the phrase I heard back the most was, I put fires out every day. And I think a lot of leaders really can relate to that idea. That I get up in the morning and I go to work and I'm just trying to get through the day and answer people's questions and keep people focused and on track. And that the nature of working in that way, I think, really prevents us from leveling up. Another way to think about it is playing bigger. I think that we sometimes owe it to leaders to remind them that their life gets easier when they start playing bigger. And so the question that I want to throw out to those who are listening today is, are you settling for the team you have? Or are you doing what it takes to build the team you need? To build the team that your organization needs, that your clients, your customers need. You can even swap out that word team with the word culture. Are you settling for the culture that you have, or are you doing what it takes to build the culture that you need? And I don't know how often, Alyssa, you would be able to pause and think through those kinds of really big questions of leadership when you were leading a team. But if a leader's job is to create the conditions for people to thrive, I would also argue the leader's job then is to be constantly aspiring to not just what we have, but to what is possible.
So when I hear you say those words, I actually took it to like the way up here level. I went into the ushy squishy gray again, Joe. Because it reminds me of something that I really identified with in Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. And her inquiry goes like this: what is the truest, most beautiful story that you can imagine telling of yourself?
I love it.
And so when we think about ourselves as leaders, as humans, as all of the things, what is the truest, most beautiful story that we want to be able to tell? And is that what you're doing right now? Any component of what comes to your brain, your heart, your soul, are you doing any of that right now? And are you okay with not doing that? What are you sacrificing to not do that?
What is it costing you? That's a beautiful way of framing it. I don't know if our listeners heard the police siren in the background. It was such a perfect. No, it's okay. It's a perfect way of framing it, that it was criminal. The cops are coming to.
Oh, look at you! See, stand-up comedy should have been your thing.
But if we ask our boss heroes to ask themselves the same question, right? If I think about my team or my workplace, what is the most perfect, beautiful, I'm sorry, I may be butchering the question as you asked it a moment ago. What is the most beautiful story that I can imagine for my workplace, for my team? And then you can slide right into sort of a traditional, like, Lean Six Sigma analysis conversation where you're like, current state, future state. And if you call the future state the beautiful place, and then you identify your current state, then you can do the in-between, which is, what are the obstacles? What are the things that are preventing me from getting to the future state, the beautiful state? And now we get to the work that leaders have to embrace, not to just put fires out every day, but to make their environment better, to not settle for team members who maybe are just good enough. But, that's one of the questions I ask leaders all the time. Is there one person at your team who is standing in your way of your organization getting where it wants to go? Or and I think folks on the podcast have heard me ask this question more than once. When I have folks who contact me about team drama and conflict and difficulty, I'll say, is there one person on your team, or maybe two, who, if they went away and never came back, most of these problems would be solved? And the answer is always yes. And so I just want to end today by encouraging our listeners to periodically stop and say, am I playing big enough? Is what we do here worthy of the effort I am putting into it at the level that I'm putting into it? Not to just get through the day, but to aspire to what could be possible, even though it might be really hard to get there. As a leader, where and how do I need to play bigger because we have farther to go and a greater level of potential to meet?